All right, welcome to LangTime Chat. I think it's episode 10,
No way,
maybe.
really? Are
I
you
think
serious?
so.
Oh my
We've
goodness.
been doing it a while. I feel like I just did 9 last time, so it may be 10. I may be wrong, and maybe I just welcomed you to the wrong podcast.
Okay, so we know it was at least seven, or at least I know it was at least seven. And if it was at least seven,
Mhm.
then that means it was at least eight. So this is either
Yes,
nine or 10, right?
a close. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You would think that I would check before I do my welcome thing. It's not that hard to actually check, but I always forget until the second I hit record, and then I say, I don't know what episode this is.
Yeah. Well, this is coming out in December, right? So I know
Yes.
that the earliest we could have started was March, right?
Right. So maybe it is 9?
Okay, we'll find out. This will be exciting.
We will find out. It's a puzzle for all of us. Okay.
This will
So
be good. It'll be episode 109 and the title will be episode 110. It'll be great.
except I haven't been using the one because we're not in seasons.
I mean, we kind of are, or at least that's the way I always looked at it. But I
For the
guess you're right.
podcast?
No, well, okay, you're right. No, you're right. I did release them in seasons for some reason
Right.
because I attached
Right.
them to the whole patron thing. But whatever. Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
But like
No
in my
seasons,
head that
just
it's a
numbers.
continuous. Exactly. So
Yeah,
so we will call this 3 different episode numbers by the end, and everyone will be thoroughly confused, and that's the best way to be.
here we go. 108. Let's go.
That is 111. Uh, but wait, no
203.
ones. No
203,
ones.
season two.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we are in fine form today, and
Yep.
today we have a special topic because um, I realized that someone had asked maybe a few live streams ago about my conlangs, and I'm horribly slow about getting information onto my website. Still, like, don't go there. It's not. So many things are wrong with my website right now. I'll
JessieSams.com.
I'll get there eventually. Thank you, David.
Hmm.
But I'm going to today talk about my conlangs, about my 5 that are most fully developed.
I am really excited for this, but just really quickly, because I know you have your
Mhm.
CV on your website. What if we called CVs Cookie Ventures? Here's my
It'd be
cookie
much
venture.
it would be much more exciting than curricula vitae.
Except, of course, in the proper Latin, it would be curricula vitae, right?
It would be, but who's proper? Uh, I don't know about all of that.
Okay,
All
but
right.
yeah, seriously, I just thought of cookie venture. But this is exciting. I really want to hear about this because we're talking about your five most developed conlangs.
Yes.
Holy smoke! Wow. Um, I will be learning.
And they're going to go in chronological order, so that's exciting.
Ooh. Hmm.
Because that's the best way to go, right?
Yep.
Okay, so just as an introduction to me as a conlanger, because I think most of you don't know me outside of LangTime Studio slash work with David. And so whenever I conlang on my own, just for fun, I do what I call a typologically oriented approach. So in other words, I pick patterns that make sense given what happens in natural languages, but I don't really have protoforms or that kind of thing for 2 reasons. There's 2 reasons. And by I don't really have protoforms, I just don't. I just create a language. So again, a few reasons here. First and foremost, it lets me create for creation's sake, and it gives me a puzzle to work with while removing like the biggest cognitive hurdle, right? Because I don't have to think about where things come from. Just got to think about what I want it to be. Also, another reason is because I was that student in my grad school historical linguistics class who was never happy with any of the answers because all of them are guesses. They're all guesses. We don't know. So, like, I always got angry at protoforms because I was like, we have no evidence of this. We have no idea what we're talking about. So anyway, I was that student. And so I think sometimes I still have a thing against protoforms.
Question, because I'm Jessie this episode. Um,
Yes.
you took a historical linguistics class in graduate school? It was
Yes.
offered? Wow,
Yes. It was actually
that's
one of the required courses.
that is really, really cool. I, of course, took historical linguistics in undergrad because it's a big focus at UC Berkeley, but at
Mm.
UC San Diego, I mean, there wasn't even anybody on the faculty. There was nobody who could have taught that class.
Remember too, though, that quite a few of our professors were from Berkeley.
Yes, that's true.
And so there may have been that carryover. I don't know how common it is to have required historical or diachronic linguistics classes.
Very uncommon. Very
Okay.
uncommon
Well, shout out to Erin
in the
Shea
United
if she
States
is ever
anyway.
listening, because she taught that class and I loved her. I loved how she taught it. I was just very angry at the field. So that's how that played out. Okay,
It's
so
nice.
that's
It's nice
why.
that we're like diametrically opposed. We're complete and total opposites.
Yes, but I also wanted to make sure I said that out loud because I know a
Sure.
lot of commenters have made comments about not having the evolved forms, and I'm like, I never do. So
Yeah.
welcome to that club.
Do you want do you want my take on this or nah?
Oh, of course, you're welcome. Just a second. Sorry, I realized that. I'm sorry. Okay, I had to move my leg. Go on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because it's on. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the way that I kind of refer to these two are as an easy way is either weak naturalism and strong naturalism,
Mm,
or statistical naturalism for weak naturalism, and then
okay.
historical or diachronic naturalism, or I forget, evolutionary naturalism, something like that. But you can't really say that one is for sure better than the other. Um, the way that I put it is that using the strong method, um, you get more for free. In other words, you have to invent less. It just
Hmm.
kind of happens, but it takes a lot longer. And not only that, you're projecting a lot. So it's like I'm setting this up to get this, and then you try it and it may not work out. And so sometimes it can be less satisfying or require even more work because you have to go back and like undo a whole bunch of stuff that you did that may have far reaching consequences. Um, so it takes a lot longer, but you have to spend a lot less time thinking about, okay, which ones of these should be irregular, or what kind of things should I have over here?
Right.
They just kind of happen. So I really like that approach, um, because it does take more time, but I don't know, it just
Hmm.
feels more satisfying to me. Now statistical
Which makes
naturalism,
sense.
yeah, statistical naturalism, I think what we all kind of hit, and that's certainly where I was
Hmm.
for a long time. And but basically, it's like, yeah, there's no protoforms anywhere, so you're relying entirely on your own judgment and on your own knowledge of typology, or cross linguistic knowledge, to
Right.
get something that you hope is going to approximate a natural language. Um, and then the one thing is it's a lot quicker. Another, but a problem is that you're often constrained by what you've seen. Um,
Hmm.
it's difficult to create something that you have never seen that nevertheless could exist in a natural language. However, the big drawback for strong naturalism is that we don't know how language emerged, right?
Right.
So it's like at some point in time, you have to stop. And you
Hmm.
either have to posit the origin of human language by yourself and then follow it along that path, or you have to say, I'm going back this far and no farther. And so then it becomes like a turtle stacking question and say, well, what do you do at this point? Like,
Hmm.
you have to create something. And so what do you do? But you're
Right.
basically stuck again with statistical naturalism, or something else. Um, anyway, So,
So it all comes back.
yep.
Um, so those are all good points, by the way. And also whenever I teach the, I guess what you would call statistical naturalism. I teach that method to my students in big part because I show them patterns that they can use, and also because it's for a lot of my students, they're brand new to linguistics, and so
Sure.
it definitely gives a way to say, like, hey, look, try these patterns out or try something. Um, I think it gives them more structure without having to introduce the evolutionary side, because I feel like that is more advanced for many students,
Yep.
for all students. I don't know why like one student out there would think, ooh, this evolutionary model is way easier than just creating form. But that's also how I teach. Um, and in the conlangs that I'm going to be introducing today, so again, there's 5. Um, the first one I created for more artistic reasons, but really after that, the other ones I was trying out certain things because, and I think every conlanger hits that point where you realize you want to try a new pattern, but you really can't introduce it to your language without it just being a muddle of a mess. And so, like, you have to reserve it for a future language, right? Like, okay, next language, I'm going to try this out. So, a lot of them I had very specific goals in mind that I wanted to try, like, what if a language did this, or what if a language did that? And you'll also see that I just have particular tastes in languages because there are things that show up a lot. Um, and I'm unapologetic about that. I like what I like.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so are you ready?
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to get my screen all balanced so that way I can have Zoom in some places and my document with all of my notes, my like 7-page document here. All right, so my very first conlang that was a real conlang is Hiutsaf, and the speakers are humanoid. They really just look human, but they're not actually. And it's all female speakers in a fictional world I created for a young adult novel.
Ooh.
Typologically, it
Did did
follows.
did you write
Uh-huh,
it?
I did.
Are you serious?
I did. Yeah.
Wait. So we both like written complete novels?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh,
I don't bring it up often.
do you still
Um,
like it?
I do, but I want to rewrite it because I so like I've started rewriting it because I decided I wanted the voice to be a little bit different. And so now it's in like 3 different stages.
I see. So it's not something that you can just email to me
Oh,
so
I
I
could
can read it?
definitely email you the
Ooh.
original version. The edited version, like you would get half a chapter of one style and then the rest would be totally different.
I read William S. Burroughs. That sounds fun.
Okay. But yes, no, I can send it. And to warn you though, even if you make it through the whole thing, it's the first of a trilogy. And I've written the second one, but I haven't written the third one because I really don't know where I want it to go.
Are you
Okay,
serious?
I'm serious.
So we've both written multiple novels.
Yes.
How did you not tell me this?
I don't know. Sometimes I'm a better
I,
listener than thinker of, oh, I should say what I did too.
whoa. Okay. Also, I just feel like
Okay.
I have to clarify. I'm not. I have read William S. Burroughs. I read 2 of his novels, and I hate them. So like they're awful. But I really appreciate his style. But also, God, I hate them. So like they'll go thinking I'm a fan. All right, go.
So moving forward,
Yeah.
typologically, it does follow a lot of patterns because, I was trying to make it natural like.
Hmm.
But there are definitely some less natural features, including a very high frequency of voiceless fricatives, because my goal for the language was literally for it to sound like everything was a whisper, like a kind of slithering kind of whisper.
Have we talked about how I created a voiceless language too?
Oh my gosh.
I,
No, we have
I
not.
I did it for the White Walkers because I reasoned that they wouldn't actually be able to vibrate their vocal folds.
Excellent. So when I give you a sentence in this, you're going to be fine.
Okay.
Um, By the way, for everyone listening, yes, I'm gonna make David read for me in my own languages.
Mhm.
And
But
so,
now I get the name, Hutzaf. It's perfect. Wow. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
there's also almost all of the language is highly regular, which means that's really unnatural. But a part
Mhm.
of that had to do with the mythology and the lore behind the speakers, and that's this community that not only resists change, but like it's very much, without going full bore into how this society works, it's very much sort of this reincarnation model where the fourth generation, when they die, they're reborn as the next generation. So there's always four generations of families.
Whoa.
It's so
I
like
like this.
there were reasons that it didn't change. Um, it also makes you question, because you know that authors always, like write about something important to them, and apparently I was anti-change for a while. I don't know. Uh, and so some typological things, it's head initial word order. So I had a VSO language, prepositional,
My
that kind of
favorite.
thing. Mine too. I really like, you're gonna see, I really like the verb to either be the first or the last. I really just like that.
Hmm.
Um, all right, so then we're gonna jump ahead because I created this language. I started working on it in 2008. 2009 to 10, it became like a lot more language like, and the grammar just kept getting bigger. Um, then we're going to fast forward to the year 2013 when I decided to join the LCC 5 Conlang Relay. And I was placed in the second position right after someone called David J. Peterson. And it was, of course, a Dothraki text. And so I was freaking out anyway, because never met you before. I just knew you were the Dothraki guy. And like that was before you were David. You were David J. Peterson, all in one breath. And so I was like, oh my gosh, they put me after him. I can't go after him. Anyway. So I get the text. And here is roughly what I translated that you sent me.
All right.
I'm going to read this because I need everybody to hear the full scope what I was translating. So this is not about my language. This is about what kind of text David will create if he is in charge of creating a text for a Conlang relay.
Hmm.
Come to me, my child. You will leave your family and ride beyond the mountain today. But I give this advice to you before you will go. Don't trust a person who speaks with turtles. Turtles can't be burned, and they will scare your horse. Eat carrots, but only when the moon is full. The moon will strengthen the fruit, and you will be strengthened too. Oh, fine. Finally, don't touch, not once, a tree that bears plums. Those trees are your enemy. They will dishonor you, your horse, and your ancestors. All these trees are totally evil. I will hunt you and kill you if you even look at a tree that bears plums. I speak this promise to you, my child. I will destroy you. Don't ever touch a plum tree. But plums taste sweet. You should eat plums. Dried plums too. They taste good. Now ride, my child. Ride and scream like a goat. And I got to the end of that. And the very first thing I did was I emailed David because I was like, did I just mistranslate half the text? Because I have no idea what I'm doing. And this is so bizarre. And do you remember getting an email from me about that?
I
So
do.
many years ago.
I do. I don't remember how I responded.
Something along the lines of, I don't have the original, so I can't quote, but the message was the whole point of a conlang relay is for you to use what you think is there. Don't ask these questions.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't, despite the fact that I looked upon you as a deadly adversary. I couldn't have been that rude. And so, if you would like a little trip down memory lane, I will actually find the email.
Oh my God. Because I don't save emails that old. So this was my memory. I'm very curious to know what you actually said. While
Here we
David
go.
looks that up, though, I'm going to fast forward to, because I translated it. I got it out in my 48-hour leg and sent it on. Then I get to the LCC5, which, by the way, if you don't know, that stands for Language Creation Conference. I get there and I had no idea what was coming at the end of the day until there was an announcement that the relay participants would get up and read their text in front of everybody. Well, really my first reaction was, okay, I'm gonna run away and pretend I never heard that announcement and just never come back. And then I don't have to worry about it. Because seriously, put me up in front of thousands of people to do an academic presentation or speech and I'm fine. But ask me to read in a language that's not English? Nope. So I think
Wow.
I made it through the first like 2 lines and then I just went like, you get the idea. And I left.
You did. I forgot about that. I have to say I'm really
I couldn't
sorry.
make it.
That's on me. That's on me, and I'll tell you why. Because like at that point in time, like I started the LCC relay at LCC2. And then we kept it up, and so this was LCC5, and of course all conlangers in the community know what relays are. But I didn't ever realize that what was I going to say? Sorry, I didn't realize that, of course, somebody who didn't know what it was wouldn't realize how we did it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that
that was a shock.
yeah, that's something that's on me there. I should have said that. Okay,
Did you
so
find the email?
oh yeah, here we go. Sent you the torch. Then I sent you an immediate follow-up because I left out the word father in the lexicon. That would have been amusing if that had stood. You say, thanks, David. I got the text and I'm excited to get my hands dirty in it. Like that. Then you said, hi,
Okay, I
David.
never want to hear another email I wrote 7 years ago, because what?
Hang on, because you're going to hear more. Hi, David. Does the V prefix on a verb make it future tense if the verb begins with a vowel? First of all, yes. Also, I just want to make sure I've translated this correctly. The father tells his child to never touch a plum tree, but the child can and should eat the plums. Does that sound like what you had intended? And then I said very simply, yes on the future tense, semicolon. On the latter, you have to decide for yourself, smiley. See, I don't think that was so bad, right? One more
Okay.
question. Okay, go ahead.
No, go on. Go ahead and tell me
Okay.
that my perception is all wrong, and we can have a whole discussion about how memory gets colored by the fact that I was so nervous to send the email in the first place that
Yeah. By the way, can we stop and appreciate the fact that I sent you that reply email at 9:44 in the morning? What the hell was I doing up? Like,
right?
uh,
Wow, that's impressive.
you emailed back 1 minute later. One more question. In the title, it has abeson, which I've parsed as ave, father, and on, ablative, possession. However, I've got an extra S. Is that a plural marker or is it simply a combining consonant? A plural marker?
I don't know.
You use that with animate nouns that end in a vowel, just an epenthetic connector. Thanks for answering my question, and may I say this text is quite creative. Smiley. I have my fun with relay text. Smiley. So I don't know. That doesn't seem unpleasant.
Okay, so now that we've read an entire, this is going to be like a 2-hour episode. We're not even language one, but we've read a text message exchange,
Yeah. No,
email
not
exchange.
Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to see if this works.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, it does. Okay.
Mm.
I am sending you in chat a sentence.
See it? Got it?
Okay.
I
And
see no
it's not
stress.
beautiful. What's that?
I see no stress. Are the acute accents stress?
I added the acute accents for stress so that way you would know where to stress it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Everything else is just straight up IPA. So like that's the only, just because I don't like doing the IPA little uptick thing. So I just
Sure.
I just do that. Okay, so
Uh-huh.
David is going to read to you a blessing. This is a blessing in the language.
Okay. And otherwise, there's no punctuation, right? Just as is.
Yeah.
Okay. And these are voiced vowels or voiceless?
So if I were really good at speaking the language, everything would have been voiceless, including the vowels,
Hmm. Okay.
because it is supposed to be like totally whispered.
Okay. Luha katrito, tathitha, tafiha, esusu, luleto toash, letafiha homa, valeamo.
Yes. Now I hope that came through on the recording. If it didn't, then you just heard whispered. That was great pronunciation, by the way.
There were
Um,
a couple of stresses that were a little off.
it's okay. It's okay. Some of those are compounds, and so the stress is off anyway, so it's good.
I especially know because I really love this word, so I want to do it again. Um, luleto toash. That's how it should be. Luleto toash. Just like that.
Yes.
Very, a
Hmm.
very, very pleasing rhythmic pattern. I love it.
Nice. Okay. So this, what you just told everybody, the blessing
Hmm.
literally translates to may your tree grow and have four branches,
Hmm.
because four is a lucky number, because always four generations, four,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
So that's the cycle of life, that's everything. And very big into nature. And so, you know,
Yeah.
that's the blessing. Now, if you changed it by saying, may your tree have three branches, you would be cursing them, hoping that they'll always feel like something is missing from life. Or you could
Mm.
curse them by saying, may your tree have five branches,
Mm.
in which case, what they're saying is they hope you live in paranoia that something needs to be destroyed, but you don't know what it is.
Wow. That is awesome.
Intense. There's
I
also
love
a
that.
curse there's a
Holy
curse I
smoke.
created that translates as, may your daughter intentionally lie, because they're very big on honesty, and especially from family members. And so, yeah, it's, may your daughter intentionally lie. Okay, so that is language number one.
I love it. Oh my goodness.
Then 2013, yes, that was the year. I created a language, actually for a friend who had written this short story, and she wanted a conlang, and she didn't know if she would ever publish it, but she wanted one. And I'm like, hey, I create one every time I teach my invented class. So like, let's do this. And so it's called Hurab. It's okay. Um, my pronunciation of my own names. This is why I'm making David read for me. Um, but it is, the speaker is a translator who wants a language that can express himself better than any existing ones, because like all he sees are all the flaws in like the actual languages that he speaks, which are very many. And so he creates this language. And in this language, some of the things, the linguistic goals that I had to play around with were that I wanted to keep all the sounds maximally distinct. And so especially on the consonant chart, like I really kind of avoided some of the middle consonants. They were either really front or really back. Um, and it's actually my only SVO conlang that I've
Hmm.
made on my own. I've made another one with David, but this is the only one I've made on my own that's SVO, and it's head initial for the most part. I also, excuse me, I also wanted to play around with having a lot of zero derivation, so that way there's a lot of overlap between different parts of speech. And
After
so,
my own heart. Thank you.
so that was some of what I was going for. And so this is a very short sentence. Um, again, fully in IPA, and David's going to read that.
Oh wow. It's Rebiguer. Wait, I'm sorry. That's straight IPA. Straight IPA
Straight
with
IPA.
that R. Rebiguer.
Yes. And I'm like, yes. And you just ask, do you understand?
And how's that intonation? I just, had to do something, so I put it kind of going up. Is that right?
I like it. I honestly didn't get that far because it was meant to be written, and so I didn't think about the full sentential
Okay.
pronunciation, and every word is one syllable, so stress wasn't
Well,
anything
stress
to worry
certainly
about.
not, but the intonation, the
Oh yeah, no, yeah, but I didn't get that far. So I
by the
again
way,
written.
you didn't even drop a question mark on there.
No, because it's IPA.
But
This is the point where David's about to close his laptop and walk away. Um, she's done. Here's another sentence if you want to just hear a little bit more. And this one has my name in it because I was just showing how you can like pop names into questions. So it's another question.
hmm, this is gonna be a little tougher. Jessie, how'd I do?
Nice. What's up?
How'd I do?
Oh, good, good. Sorry, I didn't hear what you
Okay,
said after that. I said nice. I thought you under it's good. It's good. So you just asked, where can
okay.
I find Jessie?
Right there.
Okay, so that's language number two, not really fully developed. And by the way, because you looked at me funny when I said the name, that's the name of the language. So you can go ahead and read it.
Stress on the last syllable
Um, no,
or
first.
first?
Mhm.
Hirab.
Yes. And so that's a compound. All of the words were one syllable, but
Yeah,
compound, sometimes I wrote them as one word. And because of the way I named files, like I wanted it as one word. So technically it's two words, but anyway,
yeah, yeah. No, 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 I get it. That's cool.
it's a whole thing. Okay. So that takes us through 2015. No, yeah, 2013. So then I taught my invented class again in 2015 and I needed another language. And I'm trying to think, 17. No, 2015. I know what happened. Or was that 2013? I am so confused on my dates. 2013 was not the Hurab year, was it? No. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I'm so
All
sorry. It
right.
was. 2015 was the year that I actually was trying something totally different. It ended up being a language sketch instead of a full conlang. I didn't have time to fill it all out, so I just moved on in life. So that year is 2017. That's where we get to Gnoma. Okay.
All right.
And this is the only one that I actually have online because it's on Fiat Lingua, my grammar for that. And so this one is a head final language, which I wanted to play with because I hadn't done an SOV language. And the other thing I wanted to experiment with was an a posteriori language. So this was my first time trying to work from a language and move forward. And I'm starting to question myself again because I think I actually published this in 2016, which means I would have created it in 2015, which means I have no idea which year I made this.
I
Anyway,
thought that you had said 2015.
I did, but then I changed my mind, didn't I?
No,
Whatever. Okay. Yeah.
you're fine.
The goal is it was somewhere after, but before. Um, no, it was 2015 because now I remember what I did in 2017. Okay. So I'm gonna read this short introduction
Okay.
because it's in the grammar too, but like if you recall at one point I said it has influence from Turkish and you looked at me and I was like, it has reasons. And commenters thought that was hilarious. But I was like, they need to know reasons. So you don't have to go like read the whole thing. But here's where my Gnoma language came from. So first of all, my speakers, by the way, were obviously my garden gnomes. Okay. Because if you don't know, I collect them. David knows, but I don't know that everybody listening knows that I kind of am obsessed with cute little garden gnomes. Okay. So in the early 8th century, this history goes back.
Yeah.
There's a warlike tribe of Goths, and they may have been the last Gothic tribe to speak the language. We don't know. It's a great thing about history. Who knows? And they began setting out on raids from their home territory. So they were originally in the Crimean Peninsula, and they started going on raids. The raids often involved kidnapping and arson. They left neighboring villages and any travelers in very dangerous situations. Not good people.
Mm.
And one of these bands of travelers that they came across was a group of Romani. Um, and so when the Goths attacked the group, they kidnapped one of the women, killing her husband and sons in the process. But what they didn't realize was that they had just kidnapped a skilled witch, and she was not happy about that. And so instead of extracting revenge by killing the Goths, she turned them all into small, peaceful creatures who turned into statue in the presence of a human. And so that
Whoa.
meant they would be unable to harm any other humans. And so, in casting such a powerful spell, she transferred some of her magical powers to them. So they did have this special power to care for the earth, which is why they're associated with gardens. And the witch found her ravished band of fellow travelers, led them back to the Goth camp, and they collected all the statues. And then they ended up kind of taking them with them. They moved into an area with Turkish settlers, and the small statues were placed in gardens, and lush vegetation grew all around them. So many years later, they had lost a lot of their original culture and language because they were surrounded by sounds of other languages, including Romani and Turkish. And though the Goths could still move and speak with each other in the absence of humans, their movements were obviously constrained because they're just these little garden gnome things. Um, and so that's good. There's more to it, but I'm going to skip that part. And eventually a leader emerged. They called for a revival of their own, of a new culture, and not the warlike culture they had. And also their language had changed quite a bit as well. So they adopted a new identity. So they left behind their Gothic identity to become the gnomone, a word borrowed from Greek meaning the ones that know. And this reflects the fact that humans viewed them as only statues, but they had intelligence and wisdom stored from their years of experience as human watchers. And so they used this new cultural identity to name their language, and they called it Gnoma. And so that is who the speakers are.
Do they have sentience or conscience while they're in their statue form?
Yes. So they can watch. That's why they're like such good human watchers. So they see everything going on around them. They
Oh, that
feel
must
it,
be
they know it,
torture.
but they can't say anything or do anything until there's no humans.
Wow, that truly is a punishment. Okay.
So they also, by the way, can't die unless they get broken. And then
Ooh,
that's how they die. And so some of them are still like thousands of years old. And yeah, and that's why like the worst thing that any of them could say, like their version of the F bomb is break you. And that's like
wow.
just crossed the line there. Okay, so I'm giving you a sentence. This one came with a period on it. Also in IPA with accent marks to tell you where to stress. If there's no accent mark, it's on the first syllable.
Yes, and this is straight IPA. Yeah? All
Straight
right.
IPA, yes.
Regular trill R. May I hear you trill an R?
Rrr.
That is very nice. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Yadu grabians. Geminated the S, not the N. Yadu grabians twai gumanim. Damn it. No, wrong stress. Yadu grabians twai gumanim gibmut zavi. Shit, there was an accent right there. Zabian wasyaka ya waithaka yadwabain.
Nice. Yeah, those I really wanted those Gemina in showing up in odd places, but I
Mm-hmm.
struggle with saying it, so it never comes out right when I say it.
It has, see, I just want a little bit more practice with this because usually that's what I do, I guess. But I feel like it's got a very nice rhythm to it. Yadu grabians twai guman Gibmutabian wasyaka ya wifi yad wabain.
There we go. Oh, that was nice.
Yeah,
You only needed like twice. You
I'm
just
getting
said,
closer. Hmm.
you just said, a wizard gave two men seeds that would grow into magical trees.
Ooh, I
It's a
like
start of
that.
a it's a start of a fable.
Nice.
Um, so one of the things I like to do is have fun with like curses and blessings and things like that. And so it's really taboo for them to talk about fights or wars among themselves because of their history, because like that's what turned them into stone, right? So like it's really taboo to talk about it. So they do though have native words. So like druyugan means fight, but it's never used because that's their like their native word and it's really taboo to say it. And so if they want to talk about humans fighting, they actually borrowed the word kafgan. And if they want to refer to their own fighting, they use a euphemism, ukukyan, which means to make a lot of noise.
That's good.
And then a curse is gifyongs alyan, which means grow bad plants. Okay,
Love it.
so that is gnoma, my cute little nose. Okay,
Love
so
it.
then I'm back on track with my years. I know what year it is. Um, in 2017, I created Guineso. And this language, really my goal was to do more work with head final languages and experiment with, did I say head final? I swear this was head
You,
initial though.
I mean, you
No,
did
it's
say
head
head
final.
final. Okay.
It's head final. For some reason, I just thought the structure was different. And I also wanted to experiment with highly agglutinating languages that had noun categories, but not noun categories in the way that you have a base and you have fun with it, because I didn't do that. It was more that I was inspired by languages like Swahili and Haya. And Haya, like where if you want to say like one, you have to know what noun class you're dealing with. Like you can't even say like what the number one is unless you know what you're counting, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do that. And so then this language is just back to being a priori. Like all the rest of my languages are just for me. And so these speakers live, so the Guinea-So, the language name and the people name is the same. They live on an island on an alternate version of Earth. And when they arrived on the island originally, they settled in a tropical forest area because that's where the sea brought them in. And so lots of like big trees and everything. And they actually took their boats and tied them up into the trees to create shelters high off the ground, which is good because the forest floor actually has many poisonous plants and insects. And once they figured that out, they're like, oh, we should keep living in trees. So this is actually like a tree civilization. They live up in the trees
Mm,
and like with all the big bridges connecting them and everything. It was great to imagine what
mm,
that looked like.
like that.
So when they first arrived, their group is really unified and they have a small oligarchy to make major decisions. And eventually like their community needed to be divided like up into groups of people who are responsible for different aspects of life. And so like they have builders, expedition teams, caretakers, crafters, and so on. So like they very much know like everybody has this purpose, otherwise they can't stay. They celebrate their mother goddess in an assortment of minor gods and goddesses, all of whom also worship the mother goddess. And their major festival is an annual festival of lights that celebrates how the mother goddess led them via the stars to the island. And so this is this group. And here is a sentence for David to read. And this was my first language with an adjective.
See, did have experience with it before, many too. Okay, I think I got it. Che bokado ata anufeye omate hedi tayo mana.
Yes. Oh, that's nice. Wow,
Yeah.
my languages sound so much better when someone else is reading them. Uh,
Well,
and this,
this type of thing is easier for me. I don't know. Like I don't even know how to define it, but I just like looking at all the languages. It's like, yeah, I can do that one.
excellent. This one is third person animate subject. So whether it's she or he found berries near that tall tree. So
Hmm, that's
just,
nice.
talking about that. In it, we do have a post position. So this is a post positional language, being all head final and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, and I also did another thing I experimented with was bipersonal marking. And so the verb is the final word. And so the ta is the third singular subject, and then yo is the third person plural object.
So you basically like predicted Many almost. Like it's
I
so
was
similar.
preparing. I was preparing myself before I knew that it would be a thing. Um,
Yeah, and like Many was even originally, head final with
right.
word final verbs. That's so wild.
It really is.
Hmm.
It's funny how those work out. Uh, so that then brings me to 2019,
Hmm.
the last time I taught the class. I don't know what, like, do I dare try to create another language for the class when
Oh.
I'm already working with you on so many languages? Probably shouldn't do it, but like, let me tell you, it's darn tempting because I love creating languages with my students.
That's so cool.
So, conlang number 5 is Wohtinato.
Wow.
And this one is VSO. This one also is the first language that I actually created intending it to be a proto language for a family of conlangs. And so, like, because again, with the protoforms, I'm like, I want to know what the whole protoform would have been. but I also, because I couldn't have it be like an actual full on proto language, just because I needed to go ahead and create grammatical features that wouldn't have been there in a proto language. So anyway, it's kind of a mess, but um that was my goal. Was I had specific goals for how it would evolve. Also, my big linguistic experiment for this one is that this language has no adjectives or adverbs.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to play around with that. And it was also meant to be part of a story. I like to create stories for my languages. And so like every introduction to every language I have is like this big introduction to who the speakers are. And so yes, this one, my introduction. So I was reading one day, why I don't know, but I was reading this book called What If the Earth Had Two Moons? And it's a
Oh
thought
yeah.
experiment by Neil F. Comans. It's a thought experiment about what the consequences of Earth capturing a second large mass moon would be. And so he talks about a lot of possibilities, including like drastic high tides, fewer possibilities of coastal living without engineered planning, brighter nights, potentially resulting in different camouflage systems for prey and more intelligent nocturnal predators that rely on other senses like smell, sound, and heat detection. More meteoric showers and potentially more meteor impacts, more solar eclipses, and a more complex calendar with full and partial months. I will not talk about how long I spent on trying to figure out what a 2-moon calendar would look like. There was a lot of research going on. He further states that the new moon might have volcanic activity just because of the pull from both moons as well, visible from Earth, and that would be like a potential source of inspiration for mythical lore. And so I was like, that's my world right there. It's Earth, but future Earth after capturing a second moon.
Nice.
Um, and now this new Earth, mind you, has stabilized since the appearance of the second moon. Human societies have redeveloped for a while. It was mass chaos. Um, and they appeared around the globe, but now they face a lot more competition for land and living space from more advanced predators and things like that. So like it's the new Earth is less viable land for living because the coastal regions all get flooded all the time because of the stronger tides. So it's like a lot of the coastal areas just are underwater now. Also, the new moon also caused a period of intense tsunamis and earthquakes. So it actually changed a lot of the landscape and livable area anyway. And so these new civilizations are much smaller than anything we would think of as like a big place. And in fact, the majority of human civilizations on this new Earth really, like a big civilization would be like in the low thousands, like 3,000 would be a big civilization. But most of them are smaller groups of like 300, 400, something like that. So humans are struggling because the hardiest who are surviving must also combat both nature and human inclination to dominate the land and other available resources. And so when they do come in contact with each other, battles frequently break out, resulting in more deaths, which is what they mean. And the people that I created, specifically here, the Wohtiana, so the language is Wohtiana, though the people are Wohtiana. They have settled in old Earth's Western Europe in like a hilltop city. And they have technologies kind of like what we would associate with more classical civilization, like, you know, more stone based. They have ships made for fishing or food gathering, but like you got to be really brave to go out on the sea because remember, water with two moons, it's a trip. And in low tides, they live nearly a mile from the nearest coast, but in the highest tides, the water actually comes and fills up aqueducts within their city. So like there's a big area there. Mainly agrarian, living off the land, stockpile food, etc., etc. But everybody, all hands on deck for survival. And so their word for good is yulom, which literally translates as useful. And the word for bad is niechom, which like literally translates as useless.
This is basically exactly the same thing as Dothraki. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Wow. Cool.
I told you I haven't watched Game of Thrones, right?
Well, they don't really go over that.
Oh, okay, okay. But I still have not watched Game of Thrones.
That's fine.
Sorry,
I'm
sorry.
trying to imagine like, you know, season 2, episode 7. And like,
I
no, the Dothraki word for good is actually a cognate or same thing as the word for useful. You see, and so on.
That's
Yeah,
great.
they didn't do that a lot. Sorry, keep going.
So yeah, in case anybody's wondering why, I tried watching Game of Thrones, but I personally cannot watch a lot of killing on screen. And so I had to stop because my hands were covering my eyes so much and they were speaking in other languages. And it turns out you have to look at subtitles to know what's being said.
Or just learn the language. Come on.
You're right. You're right. Calling me out there.
But
So I'm giving you 2 sentences for that.
okay, okay.
They go back to back though, so it's good.
Oh, oh, is this
And oh,
toned?
secondary stress is marked.
Oh, interesting strategy for secondary stress. Okay, and that's again very strict IPA, so that's a trill.
Uvular trill, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay.
And I even put periods at the end so you know where this first sentence ends. The first sentence is obviously much shorter. And for everyone at home, I just want you to know David's staring at it. He'll get there.
Uh-huh. Here we go. Muakladin allelat ret.
Mhm.
Damn it. No, that wasn't the best vowel. Uaklad. So uakladin allelat ret. Better?
Yes, there. That was a better vowel. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Faiden itove yifeen swa adze tomugwe uniolenauch ixide desu adze totiavi.
Wonderful. And you just said a tree grows in a field. She believes that she herself possesses strength because of this. Her branches are near the sky goddess.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
a start of a fable. I like to write
Hmm.
fables.
This is a very
Um,
consistent vibe, and I am here for it.
tell you, I have my certain tastes.
Hmm.
So one of the things that that makes me laugh most about this language in terms of what I like built into it, because the society, right? Like they're really concerned just about their own survival. And so in thinking about like if you're super concerned about making sure that your community can survive, they definitely treat finding and keeping mates very differently. And so like it's really bizarre for one for to have monogamous relationships, because the whole goal is like you populate with like the best people we can, so that way very much like survival of the fittest.
Very the
um
postman.
and so, but like that also means that there's a lot of siblings or half siblings floating around, right? And so I created a way that's like based on their word for sibling, that essentially the way you hit on someone is to ask, are you my sibling? And like
Hmm.
if they're not interested, the answer is to essentially say a phrase that would translate as probably. So like, go on.
Hmm.
Or if you're interested, the follow-up question is, who are your parents? And so then you would compare parent names to make sure. But that just kind of cracked me up the way I like had a whole dialogue ready. So that is Wohtinato,
Yeah.
and that is language number 5. By the way, the entire fable, this tree, and because we have some minutes left,
Hmm.
um, I actually like this fable a lot. I like it when I delight myself with my own writing. Okay, so she's angry because she thinks she's amazing. She's very strong because her branch is so tall. She's so close to the sky goddesses in the plural. There are 3. But she is forced to sway every time the wind blows, and that just really makes her angry. And so the taller the tree grows, the more it moves in the wind. And because of the movement, the tree feels she is weak. So the tree tries to tell the wind, like, hey, I'm stronger than you. You can't be seen. Why are you annoying me? Go away. And the wind is all like, I can't stop blowing. You should ask the goddesses to give you more strength. And so then the tree goes to each goddess in turn, because again, there's 3. Hanyetsu says no, that's one goddess. So then the tree asks Kitovu, but the Kitovu is like not even listening. So that one's out. So then the tree asks Clevelinda, the lady of the sky. And
Good
Clevelinda is
name.
like, are you sure this is what you want? And the tree is like, yes, it is my only desire. So Clevelinda warns, okay, I'm going to give you what you want. And so the branches become stronger and harder. The tree enjoys her strength. The wind blows in the field. The tree laughs because she thinks she's too strong to be hurt by the wind. And then the wind blows stronger, and the tree's branches snap off and fly away. And the tree cries, how am I breaking? And Clevwinda answers, when you cannot move, you must break.
Hmm. Dang, that is really good. And you
And
put
so
a
that whole,
lot of work into all of this.
yeah. Yes.
That's wonderful. Hmm.
So those are 5 of my languages.
And I love them all. That's amazing. Wow. Thank you for that, because especially I didn't know much about the later ones
No, because they all just live in documents on my computer.
that are waiting to be put into PDFs and sent to me to put up on Fiat Lingua.
Actually, I should give you because the Ganesa one is really,
Yes,
really
you should.
brief, but the Wochtinato is, I should send that one.
If it's at least a single page, that'll do it.
Oh, it may be like 60.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See?
So it's got a few pages. Okay, so look on Fiat Lingua eventually, whenever.
Yeah. There we go. Now I can fill in some of those months.
But yeah, so that's wanted to introduce you to those languages. And there we have it.
All right.
Episode 8 in a wrap.
That's right. I mean, I call it 204, but whatever.
You know, whatever episode it is.
Yeah.
Did you have
That
anything
was
to add?
No, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That was so cool. Oh, man. Yeah, you put a lot more work into these languages than I put into my earlier ones. I mean,
I don't know
oh,
about that.
I don't know. Only thing that probably comes close is Kamakawi, and that's just one. Or my first language was just terrible and embarrassing. Everybody knows about that.
Because you
Yeah.
talk about it all the time.
I know. Why do I do that? Just embarrassing. I don't know. I think it's because I want to be sure people know that I'm not like, some sort of a statue or something. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm. You're
But
no
like,
gnomone.
no, I'm like, people need to know what kind of trash I am, you know?
No, I don't.
Yeah. No, I mean, because it's like, that's how you build. First you lay down the trash. It's a good foundation, and then you build on the trash.
You learn from the first one
Okay.
and then you move on.
And then you put a frame around it and keep showing it to everybody. See? See?
I think it is good though, because I think in every community, I think that this is a problem, but I see it a lot in conlanging communities, is that this feeling of whether it's imposter syndrome or just all out like comparing yourself to somebody who's been doing it a lot longer. I
Mhm.
definitely see a lot of comments that show that it's like, oh, I mean, it's not that good, but, um, and that's one thing that I I hate hearing that from other people. So like if I ever hear my students say that, I actually stop them and I'm like, no, there is no like don't say it's not that good. You're working with what you got. Let's work with this. And so that to me, I think is important that people get out there like, hey, like my first attempt wasn't the best, or like I look back and I wish I had done this differently. I think that's really good for people to just be open about and be honest, because it does bother me whenever, especially beginning conlangers, get really down on themselves.
Mm,
I don't know. It just makes me want to send a conlanging hug to them and say, no, just keep working. You'll
that's
get what you
true.
want. And like your
I
first
mean,
one's never the best anyway. So
yeah, and like, and man, but when I started out, if I had known, who knows, maybe I wouldn't have kept up with it. I needed that period of, creating this terrible language and thinking that not only was it the best language in the world, but that I was the best person in the world, because that's what I truly believed. And anything I did was just perfect.
obviously,
Yeah, like that's what I was saying basically, obviously.
you're
Yeah.
David J. Peterson,
hmm And I had been since I created my signature in 7th grade.
which I have to say is really a nice signature. It's very
Thank
artistic.
you. Thank you. I put a lot of work into it.
Well, since seventh grade, that is impressive. So, are there
Mhm.
any final words that you want to say to our dear